Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Thank you, all of you, for your testimony. Our state CIO and the folks that are in Oklahoma are doing a fantastic job. Thanks for engaging in this. Chris, thanks for all your work at CISA. You've been a terrific asset to us, keeping us up to speed on things that you see, trying to help us. The information that you put online on the website has been very, very helpful. We've recommended it to quite a few folks after the Soleimani response that we had. We had excellent briefings from your team. I was able to take that information and to be able to do a large conference call in Oklahoma with state and local leaders, with businesses, infrastructure folks, be able to pass on that same information to them to be able to double that out. So it's not only the thousands of people you're talking with, but the people that then multiply that message back out from there is very, very helpful. So we appreciate your engagement on those things. Let me bring up a couple of things we've talked about before. That's election security. It is a concern. It's a major focus of your office. Obviously, as we're focusing in on what's happening now, everyone's paying attention to Iowa and the debacle there of the apps and all those things there. But that's not really the cyber election issue that we have. It's really an outward threat coming at us, or someone internal being a threat to our systems as well. So let me outline a couple of concerns that I have, and I'd like to hear more of what you're doing. In 2018, Congress passed $380 million in election security assistance grant money to the states. As of the end of last year, states have spent a total of $92 million of that $380 million allocated to them, about 24% of the money that we allocated in 2018, they still haven't spent by the end of 2019. We just allocated another $425 million back to those states again, which certainly won't be out the door because they haven't even got the money out the door from 2018 yet still. So with this, there's not a real change in hardware or software because the states are sitting on the money rather than actually spending the money to improve their structure on election security. What is your office doing to be able to help us in the election security footprint right now?
So specific to the HAVA funding, the 700 or so odd million, I would not focus too much on the percentages that were spent, particularly the 380 and the 425. And I think my partners here might be better witnesses to answer to that. But what I understand is spending money at the state government level is really hard. Right. It doesn't just flow out the door. The additional thing is I would rather they spend the money right than just spend it.
I would agree.
This is taxpayers' dollars. And it is multi-year money. So when you're talking about hiring in some cases, which we've encouraged cyber navigators, sometimes that is I think some of the money is 5-year money, so they have to account and obligate salaries for multiple years.
Several of the states that I've talked to that haven't spent the money out have said they're interacting with your office or with DHS specifically and said we're doing some background work with them. The federal government is trying to be able to help them through the process. So walk me through what's happening.
So specifically what we're doing here, we have done a number of risk and vulnerability assessments, penetration testing, things of that nature. And we have discovered I think we've done 24 of these at the state and local level. And what we found as we approached 20 and then moved up to 21, 22, 23, 24, that we were getting 95 to about 98% of the same results for every vulnerability assessment. So we were able to do two things. One is just pack out from those assessments what the key risks, vulnerabilities, or other issues that need to be addressed. We then packaged that through the Government Coordinating Council, which we established a couple years ago, for spending guidance. You know, if you're going to spend this money, here are the things you need to go spend it on. And also just push those results out to the balance of the states that we have not provided our RVAs for, because we don't think we actually need to do hands-on assessments because we can, again, with 95% certainty tell you what we're going to find. So we just roll those out to our partners. But again, we've developed guidance based on our experience over the last couple years, and we've found that we will be updating that for this last tranche of money as well.
Okay. So anything that you could say at this point that is missing from either resources you need or resources the states need to be able to prepare for the election in 2020?
So for the 2020 election, I think the plans are in place, particularly from a procurement perspective for election equipment. They're locked and loaded. They're not going to be able to at scale replace equipment. The things I'd be thinking about for election security funding, and this is the decision that needs to be made, I really see 3 buckets of funding. You know, one is addressing the immediate risks. The way the HAVA formula works right now is it's based on the registered population through the 2010 census. That'll obviously get updated in 20. Texas Secretary Lee is, or Florida rather, Secretary Lee's done something interesting. Rather than allocate the Florida HAVA money to the biggest jurisdictions, they've actually taken a risk-based approach and getting it to the more rural communities that need that investment. I think that's probably a good approach for the national level. Let's go help New Jersey, for instance, transition off their direct recording equipment. The second piece is sustainable funding. I don't care how much it is, but we just need certainty year over year over year. And the third thing is we want to encourage innovation. So how do we do that? I think that it makes sense to have a separate pot of money that could be dedicated to innovating around post-election audits, risk-limiting audits. These things take time for concepts, piloting, training, and rollout.
Okay. So one of the challenges I get from a lot of folks is the attribution and then the law enforcement side of it. Famously, here in Washington, D.C., we had 2 Romanians that hacked into security cameras right before the inauguration in 2017. And so when the parade route is preparing, 2 Romanians had actually hacked into the cameras along Pennsylvania Avenue and caused a major incident here in D.C. as everyone's tracking it through. We found out it was just 2 folks didn't even know what they had hacked into with a ransomware piece, and they're living like the Kardashians in Romania off of stealing everybody's money around the world from this different threat. We were able to identify those folks, arrest them, pick them up. But for individuals like that, the repetitive question is, how do we do law enforcement? How do we handle attribution? How do we actually shut down some of these folks that are consistently doing thousands of people and doing ransomware attacks and such, whether it be companies or individuals?
So first and foremost, we have to continue to raise the security baseline so that they cannot be successful when they come after our networks. I think the second piece we need to think through is how do we change the economic model? They're doing it because they're getting paid out. The business plan works. How do we change those mechanisms? I think there's some bigger policy questions in play here that we need to take a look at about paying ransom. I think the state of New York has a piece of legislation they've sponsored that says something along the lines of state and local governments cannot pay. I am of the mind, do not pay. Don't pay. First off, you're doing a deal with a criminal. How do you know that they're going to pay out? And even if you do recover, from what we understand, the recovery keys are only effective 20 to 50% of the time. And then you still have to rebuild. That takes time as well. And then the third thing is we are working with the FBI. I do understand that they are prioritizing enforcement as they have for some time now. But also, how do we bring others into the fight? How do we have the intelligence community and other aspects of the federal government play ball here as well?
Right. Thanks, Chris.